Hey, if you didn't know, we do a live stream on our main channel, The Snipe Life, every single Sunday night. This is a very long cutoff from that stream where I deep dive into every single nook and cranny of Journey to Bethlehem and share my thoughts and opinions and understanding of some of the things that I had an issue with, some of the things that I liked, and maybe whether you should go see it or not. Anyway, this is a long video, so I'll just get you right into it, but here we go. All right, so Journey to Bethlehem. We saw this mere hours ago. Okay, so we just saw this. So this is, if you don't know what this is a musical that is telling the greatest story ever told, right? The birth of Jesus, telling that portion of it. So we've got Mary and Joseph off to the left over there. We've got Lecrae actually in the middle, who, if you don't know who he is, he's a very prominent Christian rapper in today's world. We also have Joel Smallbone, who is one half of For King and Country, a massive, massive Christian band. You've seen them do stuff with The Chosen previously as well. And then on the right, obviously, we have Antonio Banderas, who is a massive, massive actor, been in a ton of different things. Obviously, the cast looks really, really amazing, and many of them did an amazing, amazing job. The whole idea of this movie is that it's a musical that has to do with the birth of Jesus and the story of Mary and Joseph as they get together and as they get married and different things like that. However, we're going to break it down today kind of by character. Are there any like overarching things that you want to talk about first? We're going to go into each character, babe, and then kind of go through the storylines and talk about what is good and what's bad there.
Well, my overall is it just felt.
We'll go
Maybe
into like
I'll end it. I'll add
your
that
opinion at the end.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're going to talk about some stuff in the movie. Some of it may be a little bit spoilery. So if you don't want to know anything about this movie and you just want to go see it and make your own opinions, that's perfectly fine. We are going to talk about the movie and talk about kind of what's in the movie and what we thought about it. And so we'll go character by character and storyline by storyline just to kind of go through everything. This isn't a deep dive into the movie. This isn't even necessarily a review of the movie. It's just my opinion and Vanessa's opinion and maybe some biblical things that I thought were kind of off and and some things that I would definitely challenge for sure. Now, before we jump into this fully, remember who I am as a person and as a content creator, okay? My purpose on this channel, The Snipe Life, is to make sure that the kingdom is real to you, okay? That is my purpose. My purpose is that I want to make sure that you live your life as if the kingdom is real, because it is, right? And so that is my mission. So hold that in your mind as we kind of read through and talk through, actually, Journey to Bethlehem and talking about this, okay? Spoilery is a word. Yes, it's going to be a little bit of spoil moments here, probably, when we're talking about the specific characters as we kind of go through. Okay, so first off, we've got Mary and Joseph, okay? So Mary and Joseph, obviously Jesus comes in at the end, little baby Jesus there. But we've got these two, which is basically how the movie begins. We have a little short scene with the wise men that actually begins the movie. We'll talk about the wise men in a little bit. But real chunk of the movie begins with Mary and Joseph and their story of them meeting each other, okay? Again, this is a musical, so there's dialogue, but then most of the action and most of the story beats are actually sung by a big song number, right? There's dancing. The movie overall feels a lot more like a play in a theater than it does a movie. Or like a drama, like The Chosen, right? It definitely feels like there's stage hands and they're like turning on and off lights, and there's set pieces that are being moved in and out. Like that's how it feels as you're watching it, at least in my opinion. Did you agree?
Yes, it did definitely feel. That's exactly what I was thinking. Is while we were watching it, I was like, oh, this is kind of like a play / musical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely how I felt throughout most of it, for sure. So let's start with Mary and our thoughts on Mary. So Mary is obviously young. That's great. I think she actually looks great as a Mary. Immediately when the movie started, there was a few things that kind of put me off a little bit. And there's a couple different things that came along with that. So the first song in the movie is talking about how Mary is hesitant to marry Joseph. She doesn't know who Joseph is yet. She hasn't met him, but she's singing a song about how she is kind of wary about it. She doesn't want to get married just because people are telling her to get married. She wants to marry for love. And then on top of that, she has this aspiration of becoming a teacher because her father in the movie is a teacher, and he's been teaching her all these Hebrew texts and the scriptures. And so now she wants to become a teacher, I suppose, of the Hebrew texts, because that's what she's been studying. So that's kind of how the movie sets her up as a character, that she wants to become a teacher. She doesn't want to go and just get married to some random guy and have him be the person that's telling her what to do. She wants to be her own woman, and she wants to become a teacher. What are your thoughts on that, babe?
Yeah, it annoyed me, if I'm quite honest, just because in that time, like, I don't feel like that's going to be the thoughts of a woman, right? Like, the thoughts is the cultural aspect is different at that time. It's not American. Like, that's the word that I could use to best describe that whole situation. It just felt very American, or maybe Western.
Yeah, Western is probably a good way to say it. I'd say this ideal that we have in a lot of different creative projects, where the woman kind of needs to be in charge. She needs to have these aspirations to do this great thing instead of being a homemaker. It's a weird beat to start the musical on, in my opinion. It's a really strange way to begin the musical with Mother Mary, who is not just a biblical character, but she is a historical figure who we do know quite a bit about from the scriptures, right? I'm not saying that Mother Mary was perfect. I'm not saying that she can't have any flaws. I don't think that at all. You guys know very well on this channel that I don't think that at all, right? However, this Mother Mary, it was a really weird setup to this whole marriage thing. And it really does not fit the culture at all. If we look at any of our biblical examples of what women were like in the Bible, this doesn't fit any of them. Like, yes, there were women that had businesses and owned businesses and helped to fund Jesus' ministry, but there weren't women who wanted to be a teacher in Beit Midrash. Like, that just, it did not happen. It couldn't happen legally, right? Like, in the religious system that they had, it would never be allowed to happen. Mm-hmm. Even today, I don't think it would be allowed to happen. So, like, it's just an impossibility. This, I think, is one of the big differences between, let's say, The Chosen and this movie that we watched today. I think in The Chosen, there are a lot of things that may be off, but when The Chosen is off, generally, I'm not saying this as a rule of thumb for everything, but generally when the Chosen is off, it's because it's something that's very small, but the thing in actuality is a possibility at least, right? Now, there are some moments in The Chosen when there are things that are just wrong, right? It's just straight up wrong. It's not biblical. And we've talked about those things several times on this channel, right? But those things are few and far between. In this movie, that's the meat of the movie, unfortunately. And so as we keep on going through, we can kind of talk through this. So we have that opening number with Mary as she begins to talk about how she doesn't want to get married. She doesn't want to be under a man's thumb, essentially. She doesn't want to be just bickering with him all the time, all this kind of stuff. Then she runs into Joseph, not knowing it's Joseph, in the market, okay? This is from what I've heard from other people, this is the only thing I heard about the movie before I went into it. And listen, I went into this movie really, really wanting to like it, okay? I'm a musical theater kid. I'm a musical kid. Like, I grew up doing musicals. I love that style of storytelling. This is the one thing that I heard beforehand that people really disliked, because it was a pretty big deal in the people that watched it, especially in in certain sects of Christianity, but here as well. So anyway, so Mary meets Joseph in the market, and she basically starts talking with him, and he begins to flirt with her. Okay, and this is kind of awkward. She immediately says, "I'm betrothed," like to kind of like press him off, because they don't know who each other are, right? Mm-hmm. She says, "I'm betrothed." And he keeps on kind of pressing in and flirting with her, okay? And he doesn't mention that he's betrothed. And while she's saying it, she's kind of backing away, and she's kind of trying to get out of the situation a little bit. But then he keeps on pressing in, and then she's able to kind of walk away and get out of this situation. And so there's this really awkward moment. And of course, you as the viewer, you've either seen the poster before or you can recognize where the storytelling is going. And you're like, oh, certainly that's Joseph, you know, like, of course that's Joseph. But they don't realize that in the moment, right? So there's this really awkward moment there that's like, did Joseph just hit on a girl that said she was betrothed without even knowing that it was the one that he's betrothed to? Like, he's just hitting on random girls? Like, what is happening here, right?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that annoyed me as well. I don't mean to be like negative like that, but it's just like he knew he was betrothed and she knew she was betrothed, right? To like they're waiting to meet and he's just flirting with other people. It's like,
yeah, and he's not even like from here, right?
Right.
Like originally he's from Bethlehem in the movie, and he's in Nazareth now. His parents still live in Bethlehem, right? But like he's like newer to the area, sort of thing, and like he's just like hitting on random girls in the market. Like I don't know, it's just weird to me, like kind of weird. I don't put Joseph in like a weird light there. I understand why they tried to do it in the story, because what they're trying to do is flip things on its head to be like. Mary felt really uncomfortable with Joseph. Joseph is in the wrong, right? But then when Mary gets pregnant, Joseph then is in the right and Mary's in the wrong, right? So it's like this juxtaposition. It's this balance that they're trying to have of like showing Mary as like trying to get out of this weird flirty situation, but then later on when she's pregnant, Joseph is kind of the one that's in this weird situation. He's trying to figure out what to do. So I get where they're trying to play with that with the story, but there's just so many moments like this in the movie where it comes off as like this random thing that you did not need to add, right? It's like so extra biblical and like so not needed. And in a lot of cases, which we'll get to in a bit, these aren't even like the worst portions of kind of the, I would say, anti-biblical narrative that's here. There are definitely some things that I was like, I cannot believe they put this in this movie. But this is definitely the start of it in here. So Joseph and Mary have that weird moment. Then we get into how they actually meet, right? And so they basically have this betrothal ceremony where Mary still has not seen Joseph and Joseph has not seen Mary. And Joseph is kind of hiding his face for whatever reason. And when they meet for the first time, they see each other and recognize that they're betrothed to each other, right? And Mary immediately gets very upset because Joseph was hitting on a random girl who said that she was betrothed in the market, right?
As one should, like as a woman, and I find out my betrothed is like flirting with other women. That's like, come on, bruh.
It's just weird, man. Like, I was so confused as to like why this is happening, where in scripture, it's just like, I don't know, like it's presented way differently in scripture. And so it just doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. Anyway, so they get betrothed, essentially. Mary runs off because she's immediately upset with Joseph. And they have this song where they go through the song and they're like, could we make this work? Could we not make this work? Is this impossible? And then at the end of the song, they're like magically in love. Like, so they go from.
I feel like Mary's just willing to make it work.
Sure, yeah. So she's like willing to kind of like go into this marriage. She doesn't really have a choice, anyways, right? This is an arranged marriage. The money's already been paid. The contract has already been signed. This betrothal is kind of locking all of that into place, right? That's how Jewish society kind of works. So anyway, so they get betrothed, right? Which means they're promised to be married, right? In Jewish society, what this would mean is that Joseph would now go and build a house for Mary and him, okay? And Mary's father would be the one that says, or no, is it his father?
His father.
It would be his father that says like when the house is completed, right? Yes. This is how Jewish society works in culture. So Joseph would go, he would build a house, and then he would basically, his father would let him know, hey, you're done. That's a big enough house. It's a good enough house. Go get Mary and bring her back. We'll finish the wedding ceremony, and you guys can have babies and know each other forever, right?
It's supposed to be like a depiction of Christ coming back, like only the Father knows, right? Like all of that. The beauty within a Jewish marriage is that it points to Jesus, right? Like, anyway.
Right. So we get to that point where they're betrothed now, and then that night is when Mary is visited by Lecrae, the angel, which is really interesting. I didn't hate his portrayal as the angel. There was just some weird things. Like there was a lot of moments where so Dallas mentions this in his video, which I'm not going to pull up because it's like 6 minutes long and I don't want to scrub through the whole thing. This is one of the main things that Dallas said he had issues with when he was watching the movie, which was that there's random moments of comic relief when there really doesn't need to be. So this moment with Lecrae, this angel apparates, out of stardust, and he appears in this room where Mary is with her sisters. And Mary has sisters, which that's an addition that I don't really care about because the Bible never mentions if she has sisters or not, right? So that's a plausible addition that's perfectly fine, right? But this angel appears and he floats up and he hits his head on the doorway, and it's supposed to be this funny kind of moment.
Comic relief.
But I think it just kind of falls flat.
Yeah.
It's just not funny. It doesn't land the way that they wanted it to. And I love Lecrae, I think he did a pretty good job of being an actor, even though he's not, I think that he did a solid job of doing what he needed to do. But right when he apparates into the room, basically he starts practicing this speech that he has for Mary. In my mind, I imagine that angels don't have to practice what they say. I mean, they're literally just messengers. It's their job to send messages from God. So it's just kind of weird. He takes about 30 seconds and he's going through different ways to say what he's going to say to Mary. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this scene here?
Sorry, I was laughing at Hardboiled. He said, I like Lecrae, but is Gabriel going to rap or something?
That would have been pretty dope. It would have been Hamilton-esque, Oh. That would have been pretty good, actually. Yeah, maybe they should have done that.
Yeah, I didn't like him practicing, and yeah, the joke that him hitting. If there was some context, maybe, but I guess him coming off the ground, maybe that was the context that they were going for. It just didn't. I don't know. It just didn't connect.
It was just kind of weird. He just slams his head into a doorway that he definitely should have just seen in front of his eyes, and I don't know, just really weird. It's just a really weird moment. So anyway, then he delivers the news that Mary is going to be pregnant with God's son, et cetera, right? Pretty solid stuff there. Where biblically we're kind of seeing that interaction take place, right? This is not during a dream. Joseph's is during a dream, which they got that correct, right? As we're kind of thinking biblically during this. So that's fine. Going back to the story of Mary and Joseph here, she goes to her family and tells them, hey, this angel told me this. Obviously, nobody believes her. Then she goes to Joseph and tells him and his family find out. And then obviously they're all very upset. They're telling Joseph that they need a divorce. So that's all biblical. That's pretty good stuff there. And then they get to the point where basically Mary is shunned from their house because his parents tell her to get out, essentially. And then Joseph says that he'll try to divorce her quietly, which is another cool biblical moment there, as we see from the Bible. And then Mary runs off to Elizabeth and Zechariah's house, where Elizabeth is obviously pregnant. I was surprised we didn't get any mention of
the Holy Spirit,
Elizabeth and John the Baptist.
I was thinking the same.
Yeah. We didn't get any mention of John the Baptist jumping in Elizabeth's belly. We see that she's pregnant, but there's no mention of John the Baptist or any moment when she's like, oh, he's kicking. Even that a short line like that could have really made a lot of sense there. But we didn't get any of that. And Mary goes to Elizabeth's house alone, and she stays with them there basically to get away from being a pariah in Nazareth, okay? Which is fine. I think all of that's pretty plausible. Biblically, that's fine. The next scene is actually probably my favorite, which is where Joseph has a dream, and in his dream, he's fighting himself. So there's two versions of him, a light version and a dark version, and the dark version does not believe Mary, but the light version does believe Mary. And I thought this was by far the best scene and the most biblical out of the entire thing, because there's creative license that's taken, but it's showing Joseph's emotion in a way that a lot of people never have before, showing Joseph's emotion of does he believe her, does he not believe her, and then the conclusion to this dream is the angel kind of like showing up through Mary in his dream. It's interesting, but long story short, the angel shows up in his dream to kind of help him stop this fight that's going on within himself. Okay, and so basically he gets to the point where he's like, oh, okay, Mary is pregnant with God's son. And then the dream, as it happens biblically, he kind of gets a little bit more understanding, right? The Bible doesn't give us a description of what that dream was. So clearly it could have been anything, right? So I really liked the way that they did that scene. I thought it was really very good. Let's take a break from Joseph and Mary for right now, and let's head to some of the other characters. So like I said, the only 2 times that Lecrae shows up is during the 2 angel moments. I guess there's 3, because the shepherds at the end, which we'll talk about as well, where he's like singing in the sky. But the main 2 other ones, those are the 3 scenes in which he shows up, which is Mary's message from God, Joseph's message from God, and then the very end there. Let's jump on to these 2 characters. Let's start with this one, which is Antonio Banderas. He plays Herod the Great. Okay. So Herod the Great is obviously the ruler right before the time of Jesus. He's known as one of the most cruel and paranoid and crazy rulers ever in Israel. And he did an amazing job. I thought he did really, really, really well playing this paranoid, schizophrenic, almost like crazy king. You could really see the paranoia that Herod had. You could really see the fear and the anxiety that he had that was really controlling him. I thought this was a really, really good rendition of Herod overall. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that was perfect. Like how he was so scared of everything, but also like he desired power and like he would do anything to stay in power. And yeah, I think that was a really good rendition. And Antonio Banderas is incredible. So
yeah, he did a great job. Absolutely. I think his acting obviously was off the charts, amazing. Really, really, really well done. I think the writing for Herod was pretty well done as well. Nothing horrible that I would say here. That really put me off in any way. I think he did a great job of introducing him. His first song is talking about he has the power, he has the glory. It's his that everything belongs to, right? He is the king. It's his kingdom. And then they flip that on its head later on, right? To kind of say that it's Jesus's glory, it's Jesus's power, and it's his kingdom. And so I thought that was really interesting, really, really well done there in terms of the interactions that he has. The main person that he's interacting with throughout the movie is his son, wrong one. His son, who is Herod Antipater. So Herod has a lot of sons and a lot of weird like relationships all over the place. Antipater, you might get confused with Herod Antipas, and that's not the same person. So Herod Antipas comes later on, and that is the person that's alive during the time of Jesus. Herod Antipater is, I believe, his firstborn son, and there's a lot of tragedy, actually, that comes with Antipater. Antipater actually ends up getting killed by his father, some believe only days before Herod would actually die himself. Yeah, pretty sad. Antipater actually has a plot to kill his father and to take over the throne, essentially. So we'll talk about how his character kind of evolves over the course of this, but Antipater is the main person who is basically chasing after Mary throughout this movie. We'll get to that in just a second. What did you think of Joel Smallbone and his acting and his singing and all of that?
Overall?
Yeah.
Including the end?
Well, we'll talk about the end bit in a bit, but just his acting in general and his singing and stuff.
Well, obviously his singing was amazing because he's Joel Smallbone. Yeah, his acting was good. It wasn't bad at all. Like, I think he did well portraying the character that he was given. Yeah. I think the writing was a little bit weird with this character in some places. But I think acting-wise overall, I think he did a pretty good job. Yeah. Maybe a little bit more monotone than I would like to see from a character like this. But he is playing like this sort of stoic soldier type character, so I get what he was going for.
in terms of the leadership of this movie, you can see there's some weird choices that were made. For example, you can see in the background of this picture, there's female Roman centurions, which is like another like weird thing, like that would never ever happen. So it's just a weird choice to have, right? Historically, that you would have these weird moments like this that bring you out of reality. Again, coming back to what I talked about in the beginning of this segment is like my goal as a content creator and as someone who loves Christian creativity, my goal is to make the kingdom real to you, right? So if I'm presenting you with these ideas that are just not factual in any way, I think it hurts the narrative of Christianity. I think it hurts the narrative of the Bible. I think it hurts the history of the Bible and the understanding of what actually happened, because you can easily just confuse certain things that are happening during this time. For example, Antipater here, Joel Smallbone's character, the whole purpose of him is that Herod is sending him to find this new king that's coming forth, right? This divine king that the wise men have told them about. So he is hunting down Mary, looking for some peasant girl that we know is going to give birth to the Son of God. And so there's just some like weirdness with that, where it's just like that's not historical in any way. Like he's not really a part of this story in any way. That we know of biblically. Like maybe it's plausible that he's the one that maybe gives the order to kill all the infants in Bethlehem or something like that. But yeah, we don't really know. So it's a little bit weird where he's put. Basically, his character is dealing with a lot of daddy issues in the movie, struggling with who his dad is and not wanting to be like his dad. Okay, saying things in the beginning of the movie like "I don't want your throne." When in reality, we know from history that Antipater planned to overthrow Herod and take his throne, right? So, like, we know that that's not true historically. And so it's just a weird position to put him in, like almost like this anti-hero sort of like, there's good in him, I can save him, sort of mentality. It's quite interesting. So the dichotomy, though, between Antipater and we'll get to the wise men in a second. Antipater and Herod is actually pretty good, I think, for the most part. I think they did a good job with this relationship here, other than the things that I've talked about, which I think are a little bit off. Pretty good overall. I think Antonio Banderas did an amazing job. And then Joel Smallbone did a great job as well, just in the acting and the lines that he was given. And obviously the singing is amazing because that's what he does for a living, right? So great stuff. Before we get back to Joseph and Mary, let's jump to the wise men and talk about this. You can tell from this photo that they did some very particular things with the wise men. And just before we give our opinions and talk through the storyline, let me show you just a small portion of the movie that is on their YouTube channel. Just a few seconds here of the wise men to give you an idea of what they are like. Let me bring this up, and here you go.
With my king-sized brain, I understand that we cannot show up here empty-handed. Things are given to a king by other kings like us.
All right, so that is the wise men right there, okay? So again, this is a musical. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be whatever, right? So let's talk about the timeline for the wise men, okay? So they begin the movie. They are the first thing in the movie that shows up, and we see as the guy on the top here of the wise men, he is the one that sees the star to begin with and is like, oh my gosh, it's here, like it's time, right? Mm-hmm. He gets the other two and they begin on their journey, right? The whole point of the wise men almost entirely is comic relief, okay?
That sounds accurate.
Yeah, like almost everything they do, like there's not a serious moment with the wise men pretty much at all. And so the wise men, they go on this journey to go find this divine, king that's going to be born, and they want to be there at his birth, which is another thing we'll talk about in a second. They go on this journey, and we see them in this scene that I just showed you here. This scene is in Herod's court here. You can see Herod right in the foreground there. They arrive to Herod's court, okay? And the first thing that they do is they talk to him. They say, hey, we need access to your library so that we can know what town Jesus is going to be born in, right? What town the king is going to be born in, okay? This is pretty accurate. They do go to Herod first to talk with him and to figure out what's kind of going on. However, in this scene, they give him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
Yeah, that was weird.
Like, that's the whole point of this song, is to give King Herod gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Like the gifts that they give Jesus, like as if they give everybody that they meet those gifts, right? Like all the kings they meet, they're just going to give him those gifts, right? This did not happen in Scripture. We don't see this happen in Scripture. This would be definitely the opposite of what they would want to do. They're not there to celebrate an earthly king. They're there to celebrate a divine king that's coming, right? These wise men are most likely the descendants of what Daniel started a long time ago when he was in Babylon. Okay, so when he was in Babylon, he starts this commissioning of these wise men and starts teaching them about the things that he knows, which is the scripture, the prophecies, everything else, right? And so that is why they're excited to go find this divine king that's in Judaism, because they've been taught through this line of Daniel back when he was a part of the Babylonians, right? So these wise men from the east, they come in and they begin to find this divine king. They're just missing some pieces of the puzzle, and that's why they need to go into this library to find where Jesus is going to be born, okay? So anyway, it's just a really weird scene here. Like, first of all, like, you can talk about this in a second, babe, but there's most likely not 3 wise men. We don't see that anywhere in Scripture. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's probably a multitude. I don't know how many, but several wise men. There was 3 gifts, but several wise men. So that was annoying because it, like, you see it in every nativity scene, right? Like, yeah. Plus they didn't come at the birth. So like, I thought, okay, they're journeying, they're on camels. They're going to get there at the appropriate time, but no, they arrive just in time for the baby to be born, but they don't arrive until like 3 years later.
It's interesting, right? Because like it's a strange. There's a couple strange things that happen in the storyline of the wise men here. So they're traveling for a very long time. Somehow it takes them 9 months to get from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, which is like 5 miles away, right? I guess they're spending all of that 9 months in the library searching, which is like crazy to me. Like, I don't know. It's strange to me that they would be there that long. There is a comment in the movie that's like, you've been here for a long time. So maybe that's what they were trying to hint at there, that they were there for 9 months, like to cover that time jump or something. But I don't know. It just there's a couple things that just didn't make sense with them for sure. So anyway, let's skip back to Mary and Joseph here for a second. Continue on with their story. So Joseph has the angel come to him in his dream, and then Joseph goes to Elizabeth and Zechariah's house, okay, to go to Mary and basically say, I believe you, like everything is good, right? This isn't biblical. Like, we don't see this at all, right? Although it could be plausible. Sure, let's say that, okay? The next part is definitely not plausible. So let's walk through this. We see as Antipater, as we talked about before, where is it? Antipater goes to Elizabeth's house, okay? This is, outside the city, very far away from Jerusalem, actually. So I wonder how far he's actually traveling to go, like, find this person. He's looking for a peasant girl who is not married and she's pregnant, okay? Elizabeth lies and says she's not there, okay? There's nobody else there, which is fine. Like, Rahab lied and God blessed her, so like maybe that's okay when you're
I don't think she was outwardly asked, was she?
Yeah, for sure she was. Yeah. And she shook her head like nothing's wrong, like everything's good, right, basically. Anyway, so Mary is in the house. Joseph comes secretly in the house, and he helps to hide her. And then they get away. Okay, not a big deal. It's whatever. It's definitely not plausible, but it's not a big deal. The next thing that happens in the movie is that Mary and Joseph get married, like at Elizabeth's house by Zechariah, like Zechariah the priest, which is so weird. Like, this whole thing is just,
mute.
Huh?
Because he's mute at the moment.
Yeah, not only because he's mute, but like this is not how Jewish weddings work
At all.
Like that's not how Jewish weddings happen.
There's an added conundrum. He's mute, right? Like the way a Jewish wedding works. Yeah, go ahead. You were about to talk about that.
Yeah, there's just a lot of weird things that happen. Like, so Zechariah is a priest, and so he has all this like Jewish kind of priestly garb on, right? And then they get married, like just the four of them. It's Elizabeth, Zechariah, Mary, and Joseph, right? And they just get randomly married because if they get married, then the soldiers won't be looking for them because they're looking for an unmarried, pregnant girl. It's just like the logic here to me is like such jumps and leaps that it's crazy to me. And it ruins the biblical account. Like it just ruins it completely. It's just so strange to me. Why they would decide to do things like this. Like it doesn't add anything to the story, and in fact it just makes it more non-biblical. So it was very strange to me. It was just really, really weird. I don't know why they would make those decisions in the storyline. And it sucks. Like I just want to take a second. Like it sucks. Like I'm not excited to make a video that says this movie is not biblical. I would be like 10, 20 times more excited if this movie was amazing and I could tell you all go and see it right now. Like I want you to go and see it right now. But I can't because there are just so many things that break truth. There are so many things in this movie that it's just going to confuse you in your biblical account and what you think happened during the birth of Christ. It's not going to be good. Like these things are just not plausible, and in fact they're complete alterations of what is actually happening. Like complete alterations, not just a little bit. Like complete just fabrications, you know? It's as if this wasn't based on the Bible like basically at all. So there's like small tiny moments where it is, but the rest of it is it's just not. And so it's just confusing to me why you would make a Christmas story if you're not going to write a Christmas story. Like it's just not, I don't know. It's confusing to me. So anyway, continuing on, they get married and then they continue back to Nazareth. Okay. Which they're told, that they need to go to Bethlehem for the census. Okay. Which is fine. That's all good. It's all whatever. That's fine there. Yeah. Anything else you want to say there, real quick, before we continue?
No, the marriage was weird.
Yeah, the marriage was weird for sure. So the wise men end up leaving Herod's palace because they have figured out that Jesus is going to be born in Bethlehem. They sneak away in the night. Herod then immediately finds out that they're going to Bethlehem. So he knows that it's going to happen in Bethlehem without them telling him. There's just been reports of them going towards Bethlehem. So that infers to him that Bethlehem is the place where Jesus is going to be born. And then immediately he sends Antipater back over to Bethlehem to go and interrogate basically everybody there. Okay. Mary and Joseph, meanwhile, get to Bethlehem, and they basically have to sneak in because they're afraid of getting caught at the gate, even though
they just got married to avoid this.
Right.
I was confused about that. I was like, literally, like they just got married so that they wouldn't get caught, so that they wouldn't look for a peasant woman single, but they got married.
Yeah.
So
it was just some weird stuff that was happening there. So anyway, so they snuck in. They get into the city, and everybody gets this wrong, but they were like looking for a room to stay, like at random people's houses. What actually happened in real life is that they went to go stay with Joseph's family, which would have been in Bethlehem because that's where he's from. And they said they don't have any room in the house, so they need to stay in the stable, which is on the first floor of the building. These Jewish homes would have 2 floors, okay? The top floor would be for family and people to sleep and to live, okay? The bottom floor was like a stable where the animals would live that you had during the day. Your donkeys or your horses or your sheep or whatever you had, okay, would stay in the bottom portion of your house. That's how it worked. So there was no room in the top portion of the house. So then they had to sleep on the bottom portion of the house, but it's still within Joseph's family's house. That's actually how it works. Okay. So that was all wrong. He finds a random barn. He says, I found an empty barn or an old barn for us to stay in. So they stay in an old barn. That's where they have Jesus and everything. And everything kind of happens there. Okay. Meanwhile, the wise men, the wise guys, who they often call themselves, which is hilarious. The wise guys, they are in Bethlehem and they're just hanging out with some shepherds. I'm not exactly sure why. Like, if they're trying to follow the star, I guess that's where the star landed. And now they're hanging out with a bunch of shepherds out in a field. Okay. We're getting to the end here. Okay. We're almost done with the storyline. And I promise you there's a reason why we're going through all of this. Okay. So we get to the end here. They have Jesus. Everything's good. They have Jesus in the barn. Everybody's super excited. This moment happens here from this screenshot. Then we get the angels appearing to the wise guys and the shepherds, okay? So in the field, the angels now appear not only to the shepherds, which is biblical, that's what happens, but they also appear to the wise men in front of the shepherds and everything, right? So everybody gets to see the angels. And not only do the angels appear to the shepherds, which is the point of the angels appearing, but they also appear to everybody else in the world, apparently. From Jerusalem all the way up to Nazareth, everybody can see the angels. Everybody. Like, everybody has this super bright light that's shown on them, and everybody from miles and miles and miles and miles and miles apart, from Jerusalem all the way up to Nazareth, all the way up to Bethlehem, everybody can see the angels, which is really weird. It's just like, doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. Let's move past that point. Again, not a biblical point. The wise men are with the shepherds when the angels appear. That's just not how it happens. It's not biblical. So it's just like, it's slightly annoying. Like, you're confusing people. Why would you do this? You don't have to shoot it this way, but you chose to shoot it this way. It just annoys me. Then we see as the shepherds appear to Mary and Joseph, because now they know where to go, apparently. The child has been born. The angels have sent their message. The shepherds go to Mary and Joseph, and they see Jesus. Then the wise men show up as well, and they are there. Then when everybody's there, who else appears in the famous story of Christmas but Antipater? Like, what?
I'm sorry, when that happened, I was like, what? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Because then why wouldn't he kill Jesus right then and there?
Right. Like, his whole purpose, his whole being is to capture this girl and to kill her child. Like, that is his purpose. That is his storyline throughout the entire thing. The only song that we get in contrary to that is that he doesn't want to be like his father, right? So Antipater is now in the stable, in this barn, with the wise men and the shepherds and Mary and Joseph and Jesus. And we get this girl boss moment where earlier on, the angel known as Lecrae, he says to Mary, he says, you shall back down from no man, or something like that, right? What is the
Be courageous or something like that.
Yeah, it's like you shall cower from no man.
Oh, yeah,
is what it is, I think.
Yep.
And so he says that phrase to her, you shall cower from no man. And then later on, whenever Antipater comes in, she hears that line repeated to her as she's kind of sitting here and she's kind of scared, right? So then she stands up and like looks at Antipater and talks to him for a minute, and she sees that his heart is changing, right? Which is like weird because like he has all these Roman soldiers around him, like they're about to kill your kid, right? And so she like kind of lets him through and lets him look at Jesus, and him looking at Jesus and seeing the situation changes his heart and makes him into a good guy. Antipater, Herod Antipater is now a good guy. Okay. Not only is he a good guy, but he is the savior of Jesus in this film. Think about that for a second. Okay. So he turns around to his Roman soldiers, he takes out his sword and he says, now everybody here is under my protection. Let them through, don't touch them. Okay?
Give them passage.
Give them passage. And so he is the one that tells them you need to get out of here. Okay? And then Joseph, really quickly, they add in a line that says that Joseph had a dream and that they need to escape to Egypt. Okay? Mm-hmm. So the next morning, They pack everything up. The next morning they leave, and they head to Egypt. Okay, that's when the wise men give their gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Okay, and they leave the next morning and they go off to Egypt. This is just, it's so strange to me that specifically they would make it that Antipater is the savior of Jesus in this moment. That he's the one that actually saves them and allows them to get out of the city because he doesn't kill them, he doesn't hold them hostage, he doesn't take them captive and bring them back to Herod. Like, this is a really strange thing that's happening here. Like, did you think the same, or did you not catch on that? Or
yeah, and well, like, because Mary plays on the daddy issues, and she says, "You're not like your father," and then that's when he changes his mind. But still, it's like that whole situation just did not make sense to me.
Yeah, because
it just didn't make sense. Like, Herod is out to kill Jesus. He kills millions,
not billions,
thousands,
probably thousands. Let's stick with thousands just to be historically
thousands
accurate.
Of children under the age of 3.
billions of children in Bethlehem.
Well, you know what I mean?
No, I get it.
So, like, if this, and it wasn't this Herod, right? It was his father, but still, like, your father is telling you to go look for but it just, none of it made sense.
Yeah,
and
it was hard.
And then how he's like, make passage for them. Like, it just didn't make sense.
Yeah, during this section, when Antipater is like in the stable, Vanessa's like hitting me because I'm literally laughing in the theater. Like, I cannot hold my laughter because it's literally so off. It's not. This is not a Christian movie. This is not the story of Jesus. Like, this is some random fictional thing that somebody else made up. After being told the story one time, like, this is just, it's just so weird. And again, please hear me. I want to see the best Christian media. I want to see the best. Okay. And, this is not the best. It's not that the quality isn't high. I think there are definitely points in the movie where the quality is really high. It's not that the music is absolutely dreadful and horrible. I liked a lot of the songs. I liked some parts in particular that I thought were really, really solid. It's just that it's not true. And I'm not willing to promote or to love on a project that is just spreading things that are just blatantly false. Okay? Not maybe it's plausible, maybe it could happen. No, just straight up, it's wrong. And it's harmful to the story. So I'll give you an example of where The Chosen has gotten something wrong and where this movie gets something wrong, right? So, for example, in The Chosen, season 2, episode 6 is the healing of the crippled hand, right? The man with the crippled hand. In the Bible, it's pretty clear that the crippled man's hand is his right hand, okay? And there's probably a purpose for that. In The Chosen, because of whatever reason, maybe it was the camera angle they wanted to use, maybe it was whatever else, they did his left hand, okay? His left hand was the crippled hand, and that was the hand that was healed. Not a huge deal, right? It's biblically inaccurate, but it's not the biggest deal in the world, okay? This is a small thing that is a blatant mistake. It is a mistake, okay? Biblically, it's just wrong. In this movie, they have Antipater in the room where Jesus is born. And then he saves Jesus' family. That is not only inaccurate, but it's just blatantly wrong in the sense of what happened in the story, what happened historically, and how the story is supposed to be portrayed. It completely changes the narrative, right? So it's a different level of inaccuracy, okay? Here it's a nick, here it's a car crash. There's two different sides of this for sure here. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. Anything else that you would add at the end of that?
Well, I tried to give it some grace, right? So I basically said maybe they were going for a fictional musical, trying to maybe the Christian, what's the movie with the rapping? And,
Hamilton?
Yeah, like maybe it's a Christian Hamilton or whatever. But like Brandon was saying, it's just that we know this is a true story, and it paints it in in a fictional way, when this isn't a fictional story. This story is true. This is the story of how Jesus came, humbled himself. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he was born in a manger as a baby. The most, what's the word I'm looking for?
I have no idea.
Like, it's the most
the greatest
vulnerable thing that you could be, right? Like a baby.
Right.
So I don't know. It just.
Yeah, I think particularly the most egregious thing that happened is the ending with Antipater in the stable where Jesus is being born and him saving Mary and Joseph. I think that is egregious. I think the marriage between Mary and Joseph is pretty egregious.
Oh yeah.
I think that Joseph hitting on a random girl in the market is pretty egregious. There's definitely some things that I was just like, man. It kept on adding up, but that ending I think is probably the worst moment for me, for sure. Yeah, let's check out Dallas's response. We'll just watch through some of this and just see where he's at. He definitely had a different take than I did, because I would say to you guys, do not watch this film. Honestly, and I hate that I have to say that. Because I would want more than anything else to be able to say, yes, this is amazing. Please go watch it. Take 10 of your friends, buy 10 tickets. Like, I would want to say that. That's why I talk about The Chosen. It's why I talk about the inaccuracies in The Chosen and why I talk about the good stuff in The Chosen, because there's a lot of stuff that The Chosen does better than anybody else has ever done it. And that's why I'm excited about it. That's why I love talking to you guys about it. So let's check out this and see what Dallas has to say here as well.
So, I just saw Journey to Bethlehem, and I want to take a brief minute to talk about it. So, I'm in Canada right now. I'm doing some prep for my Christmas movie, Best Christmas Pageant Ever, which comes out next year. But this year, we've got a Christmas movie called Journey to Bethlehem, and it's a musical. And I have to be honest, I was a little skeptical. I didn't love the trailer. And, you know, you never know. You're doing a musical about the birth of Christ. It's dangerous territory. And as someone who has done the birth of Christ several times and is doing a Jesus show, I have a little bit of my own, perspective on it. And so I wasn't sure how I'd feel. So I finally got a chance to see it. And here's why it is important that you see this movie, and particularly that you see it in theaters, if you want to. I'll tell you, there might be some of you who don't want to, and I'll explain why in a second. We need the ability to cover these beautiful stories in multiple ways. It seems like
and I'm gonna pause as we go through. This is 6 minutes, so I'm not gonna play the whole thing in its entirety. I agree. We need the ability for different people to tell these stories in their own unique way. However, they need to be accurate in their telling. Does that make sense? So, like, it can't just be like, oh, I'm going to tell the Christmas story, and then this demon fireball creature appeared and tried to kill Jesus, and he held up his hand like Yoda and stopped it from happening, right? Like, I can't do that, no matter how cool that would be, right? Like, I can't do that. I can't just add in random things. It just doesn't, like, it doesn't make any sense. If we're adding in like cultural context or adding in historical context, then that's great. But if we're adding in random things for the sake of us making our own story, that is not the purpose. The purpose is to tell the greatest story ever told, not make your own, right? So I think that's the difference there. For example, Dallas is the shepherd, right? There are historical and cultural things that are really relevant in the shepherd that are very important to understand the full understanding of the shepherd. Dallas did not add in extra beings or creatures or different things in order to make the story more interesting. He told the story from a different perspective that we don't hear about in Scripture, but he stuck to Scripture in doing so. So that's the difference here, I think. And so I really disagree with Dallas here.
Everyone else gets to cover all the different stories, historical, fiction, or otherwise, in multiple formats: musicals, dramas, comedies, horror films, whatever. And we sometimes limit ourselves to just playing it safe, doing the most natural obvious thing. We're just going to take the scripture and put it to film, and that's it. And as you've seen with The Chosen, we take some chances, but we try to do it with respect. And that's what Journey to Bethlehem is they're doing a musical. And you might go, a musical? Oh my goodness. That feels a little too...
And like you've heard me tonight, none of my criticism has been that this is a musical at all. Like, it has nothing to do with it. It's a musical. Being a musical is fine. I love musicals, right? I've watched a lot of different musicals. Right now, I could sing to you 10 different musical anthems that I know off the top of my head. Like, I am that guy, right?
He's a theater kid.
This was just not it for me.
Or maybe even disrespectful to the story, to the weight of this story. But that's not what you're going to get with this movie. The music is fantastic. I mean, the guy who directed it and who wrote most of the music and the songs is like a legend. And when you get that kind of skill level and you apply it to this story, it's so fun. It's so interesting. Joel Smallbone from Fort King Country, good friend of mine, my goodness, his song is off the charts. And the actors who play Mary and Joseph are fantastic, both as actors and singers. I mean, there were a few songs I was like belting it out myself while I was watching and trying to sing along.
When he made this comment, I thought maybe all the songs were like songs we knew, but they're not. Like, there's only really small snippets of songs that you're actually going to recognize. So the rest of them are all written originally for the movie. So I thought originally when he said that, it was going to be like Joy to the World and, like all these songs that we know already. But there's only like maybe 2 instances of that. The rest of it is all original stuff.
And harmonize and everything. It's just, the music is just wonderful. The performances are wonderful. The production design is wonderful. And now, as to the content itself, I will say this because I'm going to be honest. And I told the producers, I said, I'm going to be honest when I talk about this movie. I would imagine that the majority of Catholics aren't going to love it. The Mary and Joseph angle is, as an evangelical, it doesn't bother me as much. But the notion that Mary is struggling with the idea, the arranged marriage, some of the flirting that they do, and some of the stuff is a little, not quite traditional, probably anachronistic. Some of that stuff might make you feel a little uncomfortable. And I would say, and I told them this, I said, I think the Catholic audience probably not going to be a fan of this. And for fair reasons, I know we have a different perspective on the historicity of Mary. So that might make you uncomfortable. And even as an evangelical, there might be some things you're like, the humor is too much, the wise men, they're kind of played as like for comedic relief a lot. I actually thought that worked. Again, it's clear that the filmmakers, and I know the filmmakers, they love Jesus. They love the story.
And maybe that's where his opinion's coming in. Again, I don't mind if I disagree with Dallas for sure, but maybe some of this is coming in because he's friends with a lot of these people that are either making the movie or were in the movie, right? So I don't know.
Love the Bible. They're trying something unique here, and it works. It doesn't always work perfectly. Like I said, I'm going to be honest. But it's like these stories are important. We have to take chances with this in a reverent way, in a respectful way, and know that it's going to work. And so I really encourage you right now, whatever you're doing, this weekend, go see it in theaters. If what I'm saying speaks to you, and if not, that's fine too. But or even just buy tickets, even if you're not going to go see it. I did that once, just a couple days ago. I bought tickets for Journey to Bethlehem. A night that I wasn't going to get a chance to see it, and then I saw it another night, because we have to, like, these things need to be successful so that we can do more of them.
And I understand what he's saying here, okay, and I'll probably end it here because I think he goes into just some more random stuff, but I understand what he's saying. Like, he's trying to get to the point of like, okay, this is a Christian thing, we should support it. It is pretty good. Like, there are some issues that I had with it. I don't know if he was paid to talk about this or not. I don't know if he was behind the scenes. His friends were like, hey, would you mention this and put it out on your social media? Like, I don't know if that's the case or not, or what this is supposed to be. It seems like a promotion to me. I know Dallas doesn't normally do like paid promotion things, so I doubt that he was paid for it. Maybe a friend asked him, or I don't know. Maybe he's doing this just out of because he wants to talk about it, because he wants to support it. I'm not going to pretend like I know what Dallas is thinking or his thoughts. It's not my prerogative there. Overall, the movie, I would probably rate it 3 or 4 out of 10. I would say that definitely has some issues. If you want to go see it, go check it out. I'm not gonna tell you, you definitely shouldn't. I just can't recommend it myself. I just wouldn't recommend it to a friend to go see. I wouldn't recommend it to my family to go see. It's just not something that I would do. So overall, just too many inaccuracies, too many things that I would point out as being too far away from what I would want it to be. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm sitting on that. So anyway,